Welcome, everyone. So this is a pretty amazing conference. I've sent admins through the years, but this is my first time attending, and it's been really informative. I am Andy Halverson, Global IT Director for Ooyala. We're a online video platform. We do everything from content aggregation, content storage, to the actual streaming platform and the user end player as well. What has made our product almost the full package is that we have built the platform on analytics. Our founders are from Google. They left Google about 11 years ago. In fact, one of our founders, Sean Knapp, was the one who built the original iGoogle homepage, if anyone remembers that. They understood the need for analytics. It's still a very tumultuous space. There are some big players, Bright Cove and MLBAM, and we were acquired by Telstra about 2.5 years ago. Telstra is a large Australian telecommunications company, and they spun us back out as a wholly owned subsidiary. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. We operate autonomously from a startup standpoint, but we kind of have some of the deeper pockets and the backing of a larger parent company. There's a lot of challenges in managing remote locations and employees, especially because there are so many different platforms. We are primarily on an end user stand, 99% Mac. Obviously, we're heavy Jamf users. In different offices and through different acquisitions, we've had to look at different authentication platforms. We acquired a company in London, Native. They're another video ad insertion company, and they're a completely Windows-based platform using Active Directory. We're a GApps company worldwide, so assimilation of that obviously was going to require some heavy engineering. There are two very big components to my company as well as yours, and that's the internal IT as well as the production-facing systems. If the company has been set up correctly and planned properly, those are separate. That's not always the case, and wasn't the case at Ooyala. So one of the things that was a huge hurdle for us was trying to figure out how to do authentication across all of these different offices and all of these different platforms. And we looked at many products out there, Okta and OneLogin, to name a few. Jump Cloud, however, became a early front runner. And I'm going to just jump ahead real quick because I'm going through the presentation agenda. All right, so I've got these 9 locations, and we have some large global sites. We're in London. There's a 70-person sales and support office. There's a 60-person dev center in Chennai. We're looking at about a 25-person sales and support center in Sydney. So we've got all of these remote locations, but these key critical employees that need to be able to, number one, authenticate in their local home offices, as well as when they travel, and they travel quite frequently, they need to be able to authenticate in each office that they come into. As we're moving into the next realm of security, it's not, I remember, 7 or 8 years ago, being able to just, change the WEP key on an office access point, every 3 months. That is, absolutely not where we are today. And you can't be, because it's on us to make sure that we're providing a secure environment, not just from a job security standpoint, because you're hoping that you don't get busted, but because it's on us to be able to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. We are primarily Open LDAP, G Suite. Jamp, of course, handles all of our deployment for our Macs, and a huge Atlassian platform. So all of our dev and support is done through both Jira and Confluence. All of our code repository is done through Stash or Bitbucket, depending on which day of the week you find them naming that server. And so all of this was previously authenticated through Open LDAP, which meant you needed to make sure all of the maintenance that goes into maintaining LDAP happened, that you were on a proper schedule, that you got proper audits, and you needed a higher level of engineer to be able to manage all of that and make sure it got done properly. LDAP is a great directory, but if you aren't applying patches right, if you aren't synchronizing and providing a secondary source of truth, you can run into some real problems, especially globally. So that's what led me to start looking for a solution that would be able to better tackle that issue. We've got, obviously, like these 4 bullet points are kind of what every head of IT deals with. Everybody has to log in, whether it's locally to a computer or on the network to get access to resources. There are various large platforms to do that, LDAP and AD being the largest. Network access, you have to be secure. Like I mentioned before, everybody's got VPNs, and most everyone is using Radius to pass those tokens. In the case of Ooyala, we grew at such a fast pace that the remote administration of offices sometimes would get ahead of where we were at HQ. So I'm very confident in the way that I have hired my team globally, and so I do let them run out in front of me every once in a while, but I can't let them run too far because we have certain regulatory guidelines we have to follow, as well as just making sure that we stay in sync as a company from a security standpoint. So at this point, I'm still trying to find a solution to do that, which launched my big hunt into finding a single source of truth, one that could be properly deployed and managed by lower level admins, because one of the biggest hurdles you have in administration is you either don't have enough FTEs to do all of the jobs that are out there. You get a backlog in tickets, but there are critical pieces too, where there's a product that needs to launch, and you're bringing up a team maybe at an offshore dev center, and that onboarding has to happen quickly. So I needed to find something that would allow us to do that quickly. And of course, the 4th bullet point, staying in budget. You plan your year as best you can, but there's always special projects that come up. One of the big benefits for me with Jump Cloud has been that I was able to do that single source of truth for considerably less than I was trying to engineer it myself. It's also allowed me to pass duties off to the administrators. So I've got desktop admins who have the rights to onboard certain people. I can set rules in place, so I have an admin who can onboard. We recently partnered with EPAM, and so there was a whole group of EPAM developers that had to be onboarded quickly. And I could dedicate a desktop resource to do that, and not try and take somebody off of a production project, which costs real dollars. So, Jump Cloud. It's a directory as a service. It connects employees to their systems, apps, networks, and data. It truly is a centralized identity management. In fact, we're looking at ways to even use it as a directory. We're using a directory plugin in Jira right now, which again is just another source of truth that somebody has to update. Right now, the responsibility falls on the receptionist at every office, but that position is a revolving door, so that requires training every time somebody new comes on board. It's vendor neutral, meaning I could bring, the best way that I can describe it is that I was able to slipstream Jump Cloud in without disrupting my entire authentication platform. So offices that were staunchly boilerplate built on AD, I could slowly roll Jump Cloud out to them without disrupting the way that they were working on products, the way that they accessed their email. I could do it gingerly enough to where it didn't disrupt what they were doing day to day, which is really key because that's our biggest mandate in IT, is to be able to provide these tools to our users, allow them to work to the best of their ability and not get in their way. Cloud-based delivery is, of course, kind of the benchmark now. Everything I look at now, if it doesn't allow me to do it over the web, there's really no point in looking at the tool. Protocol-driven and hyper-secure, great buzzwords. I'll probably have Greg elaborate on those later. So I touched on this a bit, but this is a great kind of case study that came out of Ooyala. So we were staunchly in open LDAP. We had a couple offices that were AD through acquisitions. We are 100% G Suite. We were tasked with moving our headquarters from Santa Clara, California to San Jose. And a lot of the production infrastructure that had been there for almost 10 years, some of it, kind of crisscrossed between our data centers at Equinix, between AWS and our HQ in Santa Clara. So there was always a real fear about the day that we were going to have to move HQ, because there's dark, cobwebby corners of the engineering world that nobody ever wanted to touch. One of the biggest hurdles that we were able to achieve was by using Jump Cloud, we were able to get people onto an authentication platform without having to disrupt that piece of production. While the engineers figured that out, it didn't encumber our move at all. It was a huge testament to Jump Cloud in the rollout. What we did was we prepared a welcome packet for the employees on day one in San Jose. With that, we had two options. We could either push the client to all of their computers and send them emails on how to do it. The only reason I was hesitant to do that, though, was because we were moving them. So they'd be coming into a new office. People had their regimes down. And so I was trying to avoid disrupting them as much as possible and give them a positive experience in moving to this new office, at least from an IT perspective. So what we ended up doing was we made some Ooyala swag, created a couple welcome letters, and gave them a URL. On day one, they came in. I had a guest network set up that we pushed with Jamf to all of their machines. They came in. They were online when they sat down. They went to the JumpCloud URL. They changed their password, which in turn, because of the way we rolled out JumpCloud, now integrated with their G Suite. So their Google password changed as well, so that was now synchronized. The way we did that before was through a bunch of Ruby scripts that, you know, I really was the kind of the only one left at Ooyala that really dug into those and kept those updated, and that was not something that I wanted to do. It had been years since my programming days. So I was able to eliminate all of these kind of, you know, shoddy, you know, really poorly put together Ruby scripts, and now provide a solution. So what I got out of this was the users have an easy way to log in to locally to their computers, log into G Suite, and by using Radius as a service from JumpCloud, all of my Cisco Meraki network across the world can now authenticate off of the Radius as a service. I mean, what a huge win that is for me, because I'm providing this, you know, very seamless but secure solution for all of my users globally. So here's a nice diagram of, you know, how we're using both Jamf and JumpCloud, and there is my user's computer, although it's a thinner version. I don't want you to think we're passing out large old Dells. So Jamf, I mean, we've been with Jamf for 7 years. It is, we've looked at other solutions. I've had, you know, hotshot admins come in and tell me, you know, oh, I've got this, you know, new solution. Every time we put Jamf up against any one of those, it's the clear winner. So I'm very pleased now going into 2018. I was just finalizing my budget, and I feel so good about the end user support aspect to Ooyala, because I feel with these two key pieces, I can build on top of that and go anywhere. So even if we acquire another company or two in 2018, I'm super excited that the onboarding with JumpCloud is going to be so much easier than it has been in the past, because there's been a lot of, you know, consternation and a lot of trying to fit things into, you know, a round peg into a square hole to get these companies to work together during the transition and acquisition phase. So, as I said, I mean, it's a centralized control of remote users and offices. JumpCloud has the granularity for me to be able to break people out from a office to an actual group that they're working in, even a product. There are a couple of different platforms. Like I mentioned, Ooyala is a interesting beast because we're not just, you know, specializing in one aspect of online video. We do it all. So there are very, you know, distinct engineering groups. And so they need access to certain dev centers, they need access to certain clusters, they need access to certain machines in AWS or instances. easier onboarding and offboarding as we work more and more with dev centers. And my budget in 2018, there's a lot of dev center work. It's just going that way. And so JumpCloud's going to allow me to spin these people, once they're HR approved, in Jira. In fact, we're writing some automations right now that I'll be excited to see how they're going to work out. But when HR approves a ticket, I can start creating the accounts in JumpCloud right away. We're trying to put checks and balances in place so that a manager has to approve access to certain groups and certain machines. But the bottom line is, it will hopefully get to the point in the next 6 or 8 months where I can onboard a user using a HR-approved ticket and a desktop admin, which is, drastically different than the way it's done now. There's server administrators involved, there's product management heads, and of course that leads to a more secure network because I'm able to build these checks and balances in place. And key for me, of course, to make me look good to my boss is that I'm staying within budget, I'm spending the money wisely, and even like, for instance, this year I was able to reappropriate some of the security money and use it for other things because of JumpCloud. And of course, this slide just makes sense. It makes more sense to be able to manage that from a central place. JumpCloud gives us that. Instead of having to engineer our own, which then requires, not only an engineer to do it, but then somebody to maintain it, who, most likely has other jobs to do, and we wouldn't do it well enough to be able to use it as the platform that we do with JumpCloud. So that is kind of Ooyala and how we use JumpCloud in a nutshell. I think I hit all my bullet points, which is great. So hopefully that's triggered some stuff in your head, and you maybe have some questions about JumpCloud or Ooyala. Or I've done such a great job that you don't. Yes? Oh, wait, they want you to, I'm sorry, they want you to embarrass yourself and go stand in front of that microphone, if you don't mind. Or you can just yell at me, that's fine.
So I'm actually local here to the Minneapolis area in the home service industry. So we have a lot of remote workers with iOS, primarily why I'm here. But like you, we're also heavily invested into the Google ecosystem. So what made you choose going with Mac versus like Chrome OS, since you're so heavily invested into that platform? And I know when I looked at it, like it wasn't even close for field workers. iOS is way ahead of anything Android. But that said, on desktop, we're still using Windows and G Suite and that kind of thing. So it's something we either need to transition to Mac or Chrome OS or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm from the Silicon Valley, so we do live in a bit of a bubble there because there's a few, these kids get out of college and there's a couple things that they know for sure. That they're going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're going to get a MacBook Pro, and they're going to get a massage once a week. So with that baseline, the Mac has become the standard from a more from an HR standpoint, because that literally has been set as the baseline for a majority of the startups in the Valley. There is some attrition, of course, and we are seeing some, there's one office in particular in Dallas where we have a BYOD policy, and so we do see some Chrome OS devices but we don't have we don't have a device policy for the rest of the offices, so we don't really deal with a lot of the handheld problems. I've been able to avoid it, I should say. That will change soon, I know, because it's just getting to the point now. Even now, I did not bring my laptop. I have my phone, and I've been doing all my work on it. So right. That'll change. But to answer your question, right now, it's a Valley commandment. But Greg might want to address how Jump Cloud, can help with the MDM portion of an iOS or a Chrome OS. Wait, grab a microphone.
So MDM, yeah, it's the slippery slope, as we say, inside of Jump Cloud. Mobile devices, true mobile devices, like this guy, right? There's a whole sort of category and fleet of vendors that are highly specialized in managing the footprint of these kinds of devices. Jump Cloud, fully transparently, did not focus on that. We went deep on the traditional core directory side of things to get the primary operating systems, Mac, Windows, and Linux, deeply governed. If I look at my crystal ball and where I'm taking my resources, it is a huge area of interest for us. Less like an AirWatch or less like some of the other vendors do. We have our special sauce and flavor of what we want to do with MDMs. So think security, and you'll start to sort of envision what we're going to do with these endpoints. That's really for Android and iOS. Chrome, interestingly, from an authentication perspective, we cover. We own the Google account, we can cover that. But the low-level configurations of the Chrome browser and the device itself, we haven't touched yet, very similar to iOS. Sure. So net, stay tuned.
And Google is, my entire company is a GApps company. We are from three people from Google. But Google is extremely unfriendly, in my experience, to third parties. So I'll be excited to see Jump Cloud tackle that, because I know in dealing with, a great example is Blue Jeans, the great video conferencing product. However, I kid you not, once a month it breaks because we have it tied to our Chrome box, our Hangouts. And Google just will change something on the back end. Constantly. There's no notification. There's nothing, and it's on Google's approach is it's on Blue Jeans to fix it, and they do, but that's a really unfriendly way to build a platform.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I'm up. So. My name's Everett Allen. I'm from NC State University in Raleigh, and I've got a couple of Jump Cloud accounts that we use for different things, mostly testing right now. But I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit more about your built-in multi-factor authentication, and particularly how that's going all the way down to the desktop login window. I think a lot of people would be interested in hearing about that. I'd like to hear some progress on it.
Yeah, I did glaze over that a bit. So there is an agent that runs on all of the Macs, and it's very impressive, because we've run agents. Obviously, we have Jamf. We've run other agents as well, and the Jump Cloud agent has given us 0 problems, which is a huge statement to make, because obviously we're trying to provide this great IT platform. We have to do it, on different platforms, work with different agents, and the last thing we want to do is have to support the tools that we've deployed to help us. So the Jump Cloud agent is what manages that. They've worked very closely with Apple. In fact, they even just became certified for High Sierra, within days of the release, and thanks to Jamf, Nobody in my organization is getting High Sierra yet. But Jump Cloud is actively involved in the security of the Mac OS, which is what I can primarily speak to. And so I'm able to control access even from an admin level. So I can give, I have a policy in my organization. All of my users are admins on their boxes. I will, hold them responsible for anything that happens because of that. But we have, good security in place to prevent most of the issues that you're seeing. So that being said, I'm able to revoke admin access at any time through the Jump Cloud portal. So it provides me a great level of security and access to manage that.
I'll take the multi-factor part of that. So the question is a good one. So if you don't have MFA set up, clearly you should slap. We have a mandate within our company that every resource has some level of two-factor on it. To your question about Jump Cloud's agent, this is the thing, it's a piece of software that gets deployed and put on an endpoint, a Windows, Mac, or Linux machine. We do allow for, in the case of Linux or Mac, a second factor of authentication to be utilized to assert yourself into the machine that it's really you. We do this through TOTP. We chose that because it's a standard. It's, if you're using Duo for mobile or Google Authenticator, they're highly accessible tools to the employee other than some of the other second factor things like key cards and other. So we focused initially on TOTP as our go-forward strategy for multi-factor authentication. Windows will support MFA. It's on the roadmap. And effectively, the use case is on a Mac. We're all here for a Mac conference at JAMF. We take control of a portion of the user interface. You all know the avatar, your user's avatar in the password field. We take control of that user interface inside, which is, to Andy's point, how we worked with Apple to do this, to inject another field, which is the TOTP field. So we pass both the password hash and the TOTP key to assert, and that's how we do it. So I hope that answers your question. Cool. Well, actually, let me add a couple of things. We do have a fairly aggressive roadmap with respect to MFA. There's a lot of interesting things that we're working on, especially the adaptability of multi-factor, which is, hey, this machine never authenticates on this radius network, or you're not on a Jump Cloud radius network. I better trigger the MFA at this moment to really ensure that it's your employee getting on that machine. These types of maneuvers are all within the roadmap of our multi-factor. Thanks for the question.
I was curious, when you guys moved over to Jump Cloud, did you have local accounts already on your machines before that? Or were you already using LDAP? And if so, how did the transition go to Jump Cloud managed accounts when the agent was actually managing the accounts and passwords?
Yeah, so we did not have our Macs enrolled in a directory prior to this. Because of several false starts over the years of trying to get the Mac to play nice with different directories, and we've all felt that pain. We did some extensive testing before rolling that out because of all of the issues that we had had previously. I'm very happy to report that none of our support tickets have been a result of the way we are using Jump Cloud. It's also nice to be able to. We had a series of reports and whatnot that would pull from different places before to manage assets. JAMF was obviously a huge part of that. But then there was a purchasing. There was a report that came out of NetSuite, and then we would aggregate those two to make sure that we newer assets were. We've been able to simplify that now. So we use the Jump Cloud report, and the NetSuite admin is able to track that through using the asset tag as the identifier. So it's even gone outside of what people are looking at Jump Cloud for, and when we added it as the directory authentication source for the actual assets, it even made our asset tracking easier.
I guess if you don't mind me asking a follow on that, I was kind of curious, like, how did you go about actually migrating existing user accounts that are on systems that have tons of data and getting those users to move over to a Jump Cloud managed account?
Yeah, so
if it's a different username, you'd assume it's going to create a new account.
Yeah, so the cool thing about it is it doesn't actually become a different account. Jump Cloud handles security at the Mac layer, so that account that's already on the box, I don't know how that would play into, and Greg can probably answer this because I feel like maybe your question is also if there's an existing directory account, how does that become a Jump Cloud account? I don't know, because we, thankfully we're dealing with only local accounts. But to answer your question from my standpoint, the account that was already there has become a Jump Cloud account without any kind of migration or modification at all. That Jump Cloud agent just enabled that existing account to be a Jump Cloud user.
Very specifically, the rule of Jump Cloud is the identity, here, let me stand up. The identity that you're hosting inside of Jump Cloud has a username. When it's bound to a Mac instance, the username or the Mac short name has to match. And you're absolutely correct. When the binding occurs, what Jump Cloud does is it sniffs around. Do I have a username of the user that I'm trying to get on this machine? If yes, bind and take over. If no, then I'm going to inject a brand new local user account on that. So it's interesting. We have the agent itself enables you to execute code like shell or bash, and en masse too, like across fleets of machines. So what a lot of we witness our customer base, that when they're moving to Jump Cloud, it's also like an opportunity to clean up usernames. We find that a lot of it's so different than the Windows world, where everything is like pristine and the username is been prescribed by an IT guy. A lot of Macs are like, here's your MacBook, and the employee creates their own short name, and it's like totally not a standard. And a lot of these IT admins start when they're thinking about moving to Jump Cloud, they're like, this is my op to standardize my naming conventions, even the usernames on my boxes, like my employees' MacBooks. They execute the command, it changes the username, it doesn't nuke the home directory, and life is good. And then it's bound, and then that identity is truly owned on the machine. It's just a process. Does that make sense? Cool.
Magic.
IT magic.
Any other questions? There is a Jump Cloud room on the 4th floor, and it's fully staffed with Jump Cloud people who can, do a deeper dive. One of the cool things that I'm not sure if I'm supposed to mention or not, but the Jump Cloud is one of the few vendors that will literally, let you play with your free accounts for as long as you want, which really helped us in our onboarding. Because we have other projects, we have other stuff going on, and you can't, really dedicate, one person to just testing new products, or I have yet to find an organization that will allow me to do that. I'd love to hire somebody to do that. I'd probably take the job. So Jump Cloud was super helpful the entire time. It wasn't a high pressure. They wanted to make sure that I had all of the information I needed to make the right choice, which spoke volumes about the way they view security and the way that they view business. I had the opposite experience with a single sign-on provider where it was just like, I mean, daily emails and phone calls, like, am I going to sign today? And it was like, you know, getting no sales support. And it's just noise because I've got so much other stuff going on. So to be able to build on that platform is a huge check in my book as I plan my platform and security.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on that. We needed to, as you guys know, Jamf allows you to have multiple LDAP servers configured in there, and we were able to actually use that jump cloud scenario you just tested. We needed to move from usernames without domains to usernames with domains, and we were able to make effective use to that to test multiple domains so that we could see how the product was going to work out. So thanks for making that available to us.
Nice.
I appreciate it a bunch.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Thanks, man.
All right. Last call. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for being here again. The Jump Cloud room's on the 4th floor. Come on up.
Andy.
I think there's even some Jump Cloud swag, too. So.